Chaos erupted inside Parliament this morning in a way few lawmakers could have anticipated. What began as a tense yet seemingly routine sitting rapidly spiraled into shouting, accusations, and near-total disorder when disturbing WhatsApp messages, allegedly linked to General Mkhwanazi, were read aloud on the floor of the House. MPs were left stunned as security personnel went on high alert and the chamber descended into open confrontation. An issue that had previously attracted little public attention suddenly exploded into a national spectacle within minutes, transforming Parliament from a place of debate into what many witnesses later described as a political battlefield. The flashpoint came when Mkhwanazi, a parliamentarian known for blunt language and aggressive delivery, rose during an already heated debate. Without warning, he announced that he was in possession of WhatsApp messages which, in his view, exposed a vastly different personality behind General Mkhwanazi than the one the general had carefully projected to the nation. As Mkhwanazi began reading from the messages, audible gasps rippled across the chamber. MPs leapt to their feet, shouting over one another as accusations and counter-accusations filled the air. The speaker repeatedly attempted to restore order, but his voice was drowned out by the escalating chaos. At that moment, Parliament ceased to function as a deliberative body and instead became the stage for raw political confrontation. According to Mkhwanazi, the messages went far beyond mere embarrassment or political missteps. He framed them as proof of deception rather than leadership, arguing that they fundamentally contradicted the values General Mkhwanazi had long claimed to embody. He emphasized that the scenes unfolding before the nation were among the most explosive Parliament had witnessed all year and cautioned viewers watching from home to remain alert and attentive. Even before this dramatic revelation, tensions inside Parliament had been running high. MPs were well aware that internal divisions were deepening and that infighting had grown more vicious by the day. Still, few were prepared for what followed when Mkhwanazi stood holding a thick folder, announcing his intention to expose what he described as secret communications that could alter the country's political landscape. As he introduced the alleged evidence, an eerie silence briefly fell over the chamber. MPs who had moments earlier been threatening one another leaned forward in anticipation, waiting to see what would come next. That calm, however, lasted only seconds. Mkhwanazi opened the folder and began presenting what he claimed were screenshots of WhatsApp conversations involving money and covert dealings. According to him, these images directly contradicted the narrative General Mkhwanazi had consistently presented to the public. For years, Mkhwanazi had portrayed himself as tough, uncompromising, and morally upright, a figure who stood firmly for integrity and the rule of law. As Mkhwanazi continued reading, the hall erupted once more into shouting and uproar. The purported revelations were explosive. They allegedly pointed to insider manipulation, secret agreements made behind the backs of political allies, and conversations that suggested a reality starkly different from the hardline positions Mkhwanazi had publicly championed. Some MPs shouted that the evidence was fabricated, while others demanded that an immediate investigation be launched. The speaker again attempted to restore order, threatening to eject members who refused to comply, but his warnings were largely ignored. The noise level was so intense that it became nearly impossible to hear any single voice clearly. Despite the bedlam, Mkhwanazi pressed on, insisting that the messages showed Mkhwanazi speaking out of both sides of his mouth and betraying the principles he claimed to defend. Mkhwanazi repeatedly declared that this was not leadership but deception. He argued that Parliament, and by extension the people of South Africa, were entitled to the truth from individuals who claimed to represent their interests. Whether or not the messages were ultimately proven authentic, he maintained that their content was deeply troubling and could not simply be dismissed. As soon as he finished reading, Mkhwanazi's supporters surged to their feet in fury. Some accused Mkhwanazi of orchestrating a smear campaign designed to topple a respected public figure, while others suggested the entire spectacle was a deliberate attempt to divert attention from Mkhwanazi's own controversial conduct. The chamber quickly devolved into fierce debates, with MPs shouting one another down in an effort to assert political dominance. Finger-pointing spread across the floor as alliances hardened and tempers flared. Witnesses later reported that they had not seen Parliament this passionate, or volatile, in months. The atmosphere was so charged that it felt as though a single spark could ignite even greater chaos. Amid the shouting, the Speaker threatened to suspend the session entirely if order could not be restored. Despite these warnings, the uproar continued, underscoring the depth of division within the House. At the heart of the drama lies a single, critical question: are the WhatsApp messages authentic, or are they part of a calculated political assault? Mkhwanazi has been adamant that the messages were obtained through a whistleblower who had direct access to Mkhwanazi's internet communications. According to him, it was precisely the content of these messages that alarmed the whistleblower, who feared for the integrity of the country's leadership. Supporters of Mkhwanazi, however, argue that the messages could have been hacked or manipulated, and that no proper authentication had yet taken place. They insist that without rigorous forensic verification, the evidence should not be accepted by Parliament or the public. Legal scholars and political analysts have weighed in, cautioning that while the existence of the messages cannot be ignored, they must undergo thorough forensic examination before any conclusions are drawn. Analysts have also speculated that the timing and intensity of the confrontation may be linked to internal power struggles, suggesting that political destruction by proxy is increasingly being used as factions maneuver ahead of future contests. The spectacle inside Parliament was soon mirrored outside its walls, as news of the showdown spread rapidly across social media. South Africans reacted with shock, confusion, outrage, and curiosity, debating the contents of the messages and the implications they might carry. Public opinion quickly polarized. Some citizens rallied behind Mkhwanazi, praising him for the courage to expose what they saw as the underbelly of political deception. Others condemned him, accusing him of staging evidence to engineer the downfall of one of the country's most outspoken and provocative figures. Regardless of where individuals stood, there was widespread agreement on one point: the nation was demanding answers, and it wanted them quickly. The allegations carry serious implications for Mkhwanazi's reputation as both a political and public figure. If the messages are verified as genuine, they could trigger investigations, parliamentary inquiries, or even criminal probes, depending on their content. Conversely, if the messages are proven to be fake, the consequences for Mkhwanazi could be equally severe. He could face allegations of misconduct, a loss of credibility, and lasting damage to his political future. The episode has already deepened an atmosphere of mistrust, raising questions about how public confidence in leadership will be affected. This moment of truth could either harden cynicism or, if handled transparently, help restore some measure of trust. For now, the country waits with bated breath. Parliament has been adjourned, but sources indicate that this pause is only temporary and that further confrontations are inevitable. Committees are reportedly preparing to demand copies of the digital evidence, while lawyers line up behind the scenes and political groups strategize their next moves. The battle lines are being drawn, and more fireworks are expected as the story continues to unfold. South Africans are being urged to brace themselves for further revelations and intensified political drama. The tension and intrigue surrounding this developing story have really been higher, and the outcome could reshape the political landscape in profound ways. As the nation watches closely, one thing is clear: this confrontation is far from over, and its repercussions will be felt long after the shouting in Parliament has faded.